The following is a special presentation of the PDF Sports Network.
You know, I'm right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, business, media, entertainment, and so much more. Nick Durst here, along with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, our guest today, is really going to leave our guests with a lot to ponder about after listening to this interview.
Yeah. I knew he was going to do that. I know his tendencies by now. But yeah, we're very, very excited to have him on. Very excited to have a former NFL quarterback on with us. One of the first-round draft picks of one of the greatest draft classes of all time. Something that nobody can take away from him. He founded the Post recently, so we'll get to pick his brain about that and his dip into the business world. But we welcome Christian Ponder to the program. Christian, did you like that introduction?
It was good.
I've
never heard that. Never heard that one before. It was brand new, Nick. You should be a stand-up comedian for sure. But I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Love the sarcasm. Usually Nick's the one who deals with the sarcasm on this show. So to see him get a little taste of his own medicine is great. So we'll start right at the gate with your football career. Getting recruited in high school. When did you know for the first time that you were going to have major Division I schools interested in you? And what was the process like being recruited?
Yeah, I got my first offer. It is interesting. Like I always felt like, I was a good athlete growing up. I grew up I played all sports, but baseball was kind of my thing. And then, when I got to high school, growing up in the state of Texas, football is a religion. It's taken very seriously. And I had a fork in the road kind of my freshman year, whether I was going to keep playing baseball or play football, because I couldn't miss spring practice if I was going to be a quarterback. And so at the time I was a shortstop in baseball. Well, the kid that was in the same grade as me was really good. He ended up playing at University of Miami. And so they moved me to catcher. So kind of writing on the wall was like, maybe it's not going to be baseball for me. So maybe I should really focus on football. And so that was kind of when that focus or that became a priority for me. And I didn't know, obviously then it's like, all right, my goal is just to become the starting quarterback for the high school varsity team. And so that happened my junior year. And, obviously I always had dreams to play college football, especially at Florida State. My dad played there. It's like the only team we watched on television. And so, my junior year was bad. I mean, it was not good. We played in kind of a wing tee offense, not very quarterback friendly, like, toss the ball here, hand the ball here. All right, 3rd and 8. All right, go throw the football. And just, was athletic enough that I played pretty well, was good enough that I got some good throws on tape. My dad made me a highlight tape, literally sent it to every Division I school out there, and started getting some responses. Hey, come to our camp this summer. But really, I think it was February of my following my junior season, I got my first scholarship offer from the University of North Carolina, which was so cool. Handwritten note, here's our offer for you. And I remember I was in the weight room, working out after school when my head coach offered me that letter, and just it was such an amazing feeling. So that that's when I knew, okay, this dream's going to become reality. My goal was to go play for Florida State, and so they offered me to come to camp that summer, and went and had a great camp. And a couple weeks later, they finally made the scholarship offer and committed pretty much right away after that, because that was my dream school. But it was fun. I think I had 26 offers. No, more than that. But we state of Texas, we had 26 quarterbacks signed Division I scholarships that year, the graduating class of 2006, and so a lot of good quarterbacks coming out of there. But definitely it was a great opportunity and really fun to see that dream come alive.
Yeah, all those schools were looking for the next Vince Young at that time. That's for sure. And
yeah, well, and at the time, like, football was a year-round sport in the state of Texas, right? It's like, you had your season, but then you went straight into 7-on-7 competitions, and we had a state 7-on-7 tournament every summer, and it was a year-long sport. And from a quarterback's perspective, I mean, especially with 7-on-7, you're throwing the ball every down, so the the development for quarterbacks in the state of Texas in high school was tremendous. And I was calling my own plays, so I was reading defenses and okay, like what play would work well against this type of defense, and so the development was big, and so I think there was definitely something that was unique to exercise football. Now that's kind of expanded to a lot more states outside of the state of Texas, but definitely at the time we were kind of at the forefront of that movement.
So Florida State, easy decision for you. Legacy there. Your father attended. What do you make of how now, recently the news, your alma mater, they're not really happy with the revenue split in the ACC, and maybe they want to look to move, and just in your thoughts in general, because college football is very different now from when you played with all this realignment. It looks like we're going to end up having the Big Ten and the SEC as the main two, as the only two conferences at some point. Your thoughts on everything going on in college football these days?
Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, I think since I left, I mean, my last year was 2010, the 2010 season, but over the last 13 years, a lot has changed, right? NIL, transfer portal, now this conference realignment and consolidation. It's just it's gotten really complicated and it's got really different, and really what it's turning into is it's a professional league, and you could argue that it's really just a subpar NFL now, because these athletes are getting paid, and obviously the quality of play is very different from what happens in the NFL. And look, you get the pomp and circumstance of college football that you don't get in the NFL, which will always be a part of the game. But it's just really different. And I don't know what's going to happen in Florida State. They have to raise a ton of money to be able to even exit, and the ACC. And I get that. There's some other, from a TV revenue standpoint, like SEC is making a ton of money now. It is interesting to me, like, look, if the ACC is not as competitive, obviously you have Clemson, University of Miami is always in play because they're always recruit pretty well. But really outside of that, like it's not that highly competitive. And so, do you have more of a chance to win the ACC and get to a playoff than going to SEC or the Big Ten, which is really crowded with really good teams? And who knows if you'll be the number 1, 2, 3, or whatever even happens with this conference realignment. I know now what we're getting to next year is going to be a dozen teams in the playoffs, which another change, right? Like there's just a lot going on.
We'll have 8 teams from the SEC and 4 Big Ten teams.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's so bizarre. And now like Stanford might play in the ACC. Like, how does this even make any sense? It's just
it doesn't.
It's crazy. It doesn't, and it's sad, right? Like no more Pac-12 football. And I get, look, for those Pac-12 teams, you play at midnight on the East Coast a lot, and so you don't get the attention that all these other teams get. But for Stanford to have to get up and go fly 4 or 5 times a year to the East Coast to play a game, like that's brutal. Now that hasn't happened yet, but obviously they're looking somewhere to play. It's just the landscape the changes accelerated so fast over the last few years.
Yeah, the Pac-12 kind of killed themselves because I think their upcoming TV deal is like on Amazon. So like they're not even on TV. So who's gonna? I want to go put on Amazon and want to talk in the morning to watch college football. Probably not. So I think streaming's killing athletics, in my opinion.
It's killing everything, really. I mean, it's killing it now. Now there's going to be people are going to figure it out, and people figure out the right way to like. Look, I'm excited that Sunday NFL Ticket now is on YouTube TV. Right, it's so much accessible now. It's still $300 a year, which is expensive, but like to me, it was so much more accessible than having to have a stupid satellite dish on your house that get it through DirecTV. So people will figure it out, but it is interesting, the Amazon play, right? Like, because you also think about recruits. Like, if I'm a recruit and I'm going to go to Pac-12 team, and people are going to watch me on Amazon and not ESPN or ABC or what, like that affects recruiting too, and maybe even just slightly, but still, it's definitely a different dynamic.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I saw it. There's going to be like the ACC game of the week is going to be on Peacock. So that's something for the recruits to consider. SEC, you're on CBS. Big Ten, you're on Fox. You're locked in good spots there. But so Joe, he went to Marist. He was the big man on campus. So I can't relate with you guys here. You were the big man on campus. On your senior year, you beat Miami and Florida in the same year, which is very rare to beat both of the rivals and have them on the schedule. So what was that senior season like for you, especially when you beat both of the Florida schools?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was the first time that Florida State won 10 games in a really long time, and and to beat those, especially Florida, right? We hadn't beaten Florida in I don't even know how many years in a row that we'd lost to UF, and so to get that one at home and to beat Florida earlier in the year, or to beat Miami earlier in the year, and it was interesting when I was in school. Every time we go to Miami, we beat Miami. When Miami would come play us, we lost. So it was kind of this weird thing, but yeah, I got to beat Miami twice. It was 2-1 against Miami, and the games I was really 1-1 against UF. I didn't play my junior year because I was hurt, and my senior year battled some injuries. But they get 10 wins to beat those two teams to make the ACC championship game was to me just really proud moment, and they only got better after I left. They won the ACC. They won a national championship after I left, but it was really cool to be a part of that team. Jimbo Fisher's first year as the head coach was Bobby Bowden's last quarterback my junior year, and so it just felt like I left on a high note, and obviously played well enough to go to the draft and get drafted in the first round. But definitely a lot to be proud of.
So when in your college football career did you realize, or were you being told, hey, you're going to probably be drafted? And in that senior year, when did you kind of know, like, hey, I'm going to be a first round pick? And what was that whole combine process and pro day process like for you?
Yeah. I had gotten told, or I was told I would have been a first round draft pick after my junior year, and I would have left early, but my junior season was ended because I had played Clemson on a Saturday night game. The week before, I broke ribs, didn't practice all week. Go to this game, I'm wearing like 30 pounds of armor around, like bulletproof vests and all this stupid stuff around my ribs so I can play. And terrible game, throw 3 interceptions. My last interception is going to be a pick 6. DeAndre McDaniel, 235-pound safety. I'm livid. I'm going to like go blow this dude up. And I try, and I don't blow him up. He blows me up. And then time separates a 3rd-degree separation. My AC joint is ninth game of the year, I think. And so ended that season. And so I had to make a decision like, look, I'm injured. Do I try to go out? And to me, the wisest decision was return for my senior year and still battle some injuries my senior year. Didn't have what I thought as good of a senior year as I should have because of those injuries, but still had enough good tape that I knew I was going to get drafted. I didn't know when. After junior year, was told you could be a first round draft pick. Got some mixed thoughts. After my senior year, could be first, could be second, could be early third. So didn't really know, but obviously I had the invitation to go to the combine. Even before that, played in the Senior Bowl, was the Senior Bowl MVP. Had a great combine, and really, I think the combine's interesting because the tape doesn't lie. You already have tape. I think you're more judged on your tape than what your performance at the combine is. I think really combine's about the meetings behind the scenes with coaches in front of office, and it's, I'm sure you guys have read some of the headlines that come out of those meetings. Like they can be pretty brutal, and so I think you're more judged off of those experiences than you are like your 40 time, unless you're a quarterback and go run a 5.9, like that's probably not going to help you. But it's more behind the scenes stuff than what you see on TV.
Yeah. So you said your senior year, you get your bachelor's degree in finance, you get your MBA, and that ultimately ends up helping you later down the road with the post. And we'll talk about that momentarily, but talk to us about finding out you're getting drafted by the Vikings and that first training camp, what the adjustment period was like. And also for you grew up in Texas, go to college in Florida. I mean, how brutal was a Minnesota winter?
Yeah, it was tough. It was very eye-opening. I remember my that first year, and we actually had some of a mild winter that year, but mild was still nothing I ever experienced before. But I remember coming, I think it's Christmas Eve, we had practice, and there was, now they have a new facility, but the old facility, there was this big pond or lake right next to the training facility. And on Christmas Eve, it was a warm front. So instead of 15 degrees, it was 35 degrees that day. And it is funny because I remember going there, they would tell you like, hey, you get some days where it's the mid 30s or upper 30s, like you're going to wear shorts because it's going to feel warm for you. Like, come January, February, I was like, there's no way, that's insane. And so we're driving by, and so it's mid 30s, and these guys have wheeled out a couch onto this frozen, because by then every lake's frozen, it's all frozen over. They wheeled this couch out on this lake. They had a TV set up, and they're in shorts and t-shirts, and they're ice fishing, right next to this thing. I'm like, wow, this is Minnesota life. And but it was an adjustment. It was an adjustment to living in Minnesota, which was great. I had a lot of great memories there. It's a beautiful state. Summers there are amazing, but getting to play with guys like Chad Greenway and Adrian Peterson and so many guys that I came to be friends with and had great memories. And but it was such a bit too. Like in the year I was drafted, there was a lockout, so it's not like I got all the OTAs and practice in the spring and summer. It was basically I flew up, did the press conference the Friday morning after the Thursday night draft, and then got kicked out of the facility, had to go home, and had no communication with coaches the whole time. And then finally, the CBA gets agreed to basically the week before training camp happened. They signed Donovan McNabb to be the veteran quarterback. We start training camp, and obviously the focus was with Donovan, getting him up to speed because he's going to be the starter. And so just it was very different, and obviously a big adjustment for me. And ended up starting later that year. I think we won the open up against Green Bay, had a good game. We lost, beat Carolina the next game, which was my first win. And then after that, kind of didn't do great. Second year, we make the playoffs and had a much better year. And but it was a tremendous experience. I mean, just so grateful for that opportunity and a lot of great teammates and a great team to be on.
So you performed relatively well early in Minnesota. Again, that 2012 team made the playoffs. Adrian Peterson won the MVP that season. But what was it like ultimately bouncing around, going to the now Las Vegas Raiders? Back then they were Oakland Raiders. The Broncos, the 49ers. What was it like during that second part of your career, bouncing around to a couple of different teams with the expectation you're going in that you're going to be competing for your job? Yeah. As opposed to when you were drafted by the Vikings, there was the expectation that you were going to be the starter. Now, your career numbers over the course of your tenure with the Vikings aren't so bad. You threw more touchdowns than you had interceptions.
Barely.
The record, again, you made the playoffs, right? So it's like you had some success there, and you're probably thinking to yourself, like, okay, I've proven that, I can start games in the NFL. I can play relatively well. I could steady the ship. I can ultimately lead a team to the playoffs. So what was it like during that second part of your career? Again, like I said, looking at it from a more competition perspective instead of like you're going in to start immediately.
Yeah, look, it was obviously a different dynamic. I think what happened to me, especially, well, even after my injury in college, like, my confidence level definitely took a hit even back then. But obviously, going and I had a decent second year, didn't have a great third year, battled some injuries there. And really, I think my confidence took a major hit. And obviously they drafted Teddy Bridgewater, and I knew my time was done. And then going to new teams, going to Oakland and only making it through training camp and getting cut, I just, my confidence was gone. And especially in the quarterback position, right? Like that confidence is really everything. And so, it was difficult. It was difficult for me. And I think, what ended up being a bit disappointing was when I went to San Francisco. I got signed kind of in the middle of training camp, went and had a great training camp and great preseason, ended up signing with the team and really enjoyed my time there. Had a great relationship with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, who's obviously now head coach at Ohio State, and Kevin O'Connell was the assistant quarterback coach, who's now the head coach of the Vikings. Just really enjoyed my time there. I think that year we went 3-13, and it was Colin Kaepernick and Blaine Gabbert, and I was kind of the third guy. And I thought I would have stayed with that team and could have had a chance to compete, but just felt like I was really fit for that system, and kind of got my confidence back. Unfortunately, didn't have that good of a year from a team's perspective, and they fired Chip right after that season, so he was one and done there. And I knew probably, with a new staff, I wasn't going to get a chance to stay, and had a couple of job offers after that. And really, for me, we had one kid, our second kid was on the way. I didn't want to be the consummate journeyman, new city, new team, moving my family every year. And so I decided that at that point, it was time to hang it up.
When you hung it up, did you get any offers to go into coaching at any sort of level?
I think people are always recruiting or asking those questions, like, "Hey, you should coaching." It was never going to happen for me. I think the coach, I was not built to be a coach. I think the job security there, the lifestyle choices, it's hard. I mean, the hours those coaches work, I don't think people talk about it a lot, but it's a really hard, demanding, grueling job, and I did not want to do that, especially with young kids. Like, I just didn't want to put that time in. So it was never really an option for me.
Yeah, it's certainly a crazy grind. So for you in your playing days, what was your game day food routine? Are you eating before a game? Are you eating halftime, post game, and what kind of different meals are you eating? Because it's a lot of energy, as you know, so you got to stay fueled,
Yeah,
and carb up.
yeah. At that time, obviously we knew okay, nutrition is important, but it really wasn't as stressed as it is now. It wasn't that kind of taking that seriously, and so I mean, the crap I would eat was terrible, like chicken wings and pizza and French fries, and I'm carbo loading, but obviously they're all terrible carbs. So it was not good. And even in college, at halftime, we walk in at Florida State and you'd have like 2 sticks of juicy fruit gum and a chocolate Hershey's bar, and that would be your halftime stack, which was wild now to think about it. And so I didn't take it that seriously, and I pay for it now because I think my thought process was, look, I'm burning so many calories in practice and in games and workouts that I would just eat whatever I wanted. And now I'm still in the habit of like, I will crush a full plate of French fries in under 2 minutes, right? Like, and now obviously my lifestyle is very different that I need to adjust, but I haven't adjusted yet. But yeah, I did not. Nutrition was not a big focus for me. It was just whatever tasted good was going in my mouth.
You give me a no comment on this, but I have to ask you because you went to Florida State about the world famous crab legs there. Are they really that good?
I never had any crab legs, and I wasn't there. I didn't cross paths with the aforementioned person that you're talking about. So I never experienced that. So yeah, that one was over my head.
Nick loves asking the food questions.
Ask the hard hitting questions.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Is there any specific memory time in your life when you were playing that you remember you had a go-to song or a musician or the team had a go-to song or musician to get you guys pumped up before or after the games?
It wasn't not. I mean, look, at Florida State, it was always the Phil Collins, like In the Air, like Tonight, like that was always playing in the locker room before the game, and but other than that, it was like every guy had their own song that they were blasting on radios, and I never really had specific songs that I listened to. It was kind of there was no, I didn't have I wasn't that much like I don't know, I had some routines, but it wasn't like that detailed, like I have to have this specific order of song and all that stuff. So nothing in particular for me, but I think listening to Phil Collins like before Florida State games, I hear it now and I'm like, oh, like it takes me back to that time for sure.
So you touched on this before. Your wife, Samantha, who's better known for her broadcasting career, or terrific broadcasting career at ESPN. How did you two meet?
Twitter. So we talk about confidence, right? Like my confidence on social media and sliding in a DM was way higher than my.
Take notes, Joe. So, you need to follow suit.
Yeah. So but we had a bunch of mutual friends, and so it wasn't like a cold call like out of nowhere. But yeah, that's how it started.
What would you say, another food question here, is your go-to Arby's meal? I know you and Samantha celebrated your wedding there, had a nice dinner. What did you guys eat that night?
Yeah. I mean, look, is there anything at Arby's other than the classic roast beef sandwich and curly fries? Like,
that's it.
That's the go-to. And I like the mix of Arby's sauce and horsey sauce. Got to get both on there. And I'll still crush Arby's. I love Arby's.
Could be a little maybe endorsements perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Arby's sponsorship for Christian. Christian, you mentioned before you have 2 children. So with everything that you've gone through in your career and all the new studies that keep coming out, would you allow your son to play football?
Yeah, well, now we have 3 kids, and I would allow him to play football. It's interesting because living in Manhattan, it's not really an option. So right now, like he's playing tennis, he's playing soccer, he's playing baseball in the spring. So it's not much of an option right now. But I definitely. I wouldn't stop him from playing. I don't know if I would I'm not like encouraging him all the time, but it's really not an option anyways. So, but obviously the game of football gave me a lot of joy and a lot of opportunity. And so I love the game of football. But yeah, I think it is a discussion that needs to be had. Obviously, there are negative effects of the game. Concussions, obviously, but the rest of your body, it takes a beating. I mean, it's modern day gladiators, and so I think it needs to be taken serious that it's not that is a decision, and there needs to be understandings of the negative ramification of football, but really any sport, right? Every sport has some risk to it.
Isn't it weird how Manhattan, like, there's no football, there's really no baseball. It's like basketball, tennis, maybe you go golfing. Across the bridge.
I mean, it's like, you got to go to Randall's Island, right? It's just there's no infrastructure for it, and so there's flag football, but it's definitely not tackle. I know maybe 3 high schools on the island have tackle football, but it's not much of an option.
I see much more soccer recently, the last 10 years or so. And obviously, if you want to go to Chelsea Piers and skate around a little bit, probably more to do so with hockey. But yeah, you're right. Not as much football.
I've seen you, Joe. I've seen you do some figure skating down in Chelsea Piers.
Joe's a big ice skating guy, big hockey guy. He used to work for that.
Hockey guy. Yeah. So let's talk about your most recent endeavor, and you're wearing the shirt, so you can kind of flash the shirt. Like,
there you go.
You're over here. We got the post.
We got to do a jersey swap with Christian. To his Perhola.
Love the sound of that. So you started the post a couple of years ago, 2021, private membership network, connecting leaders. And so goals of the company, how did you go into this? Ultimately, where do you want it to go?
Yeah, so the post is really rooted in my experience as an athlete and really missing being a part of the community when I was done playing. Obviously I missed the competition and so many good memories attached to sport, but what I missed more than anything was the people. I mean, athletes are my tribe and people I get along with best and enjoy being around. But I think what's also unique to athletes, at least in the high density environment that comes with sport, is all those people that are, those athletes defined by their work ethic, their grittiness, their competitiveness, their ambition, the self-accountability, things, the qualities that made great athletes great. And being in those environments made me better. I fed off of being around those types of people. And so when I was done getting into the professional life in New York and started, in business, I desperately miss being a part of that environment and that community. And as I started looking for things to plug into to kind of fill that void, just never found anything that ever replicated anything close to being in that situation. And so when first of all, as an athlete, I'm like, okay, if I can't be the only athlete that feels this way, and maybe we should go build it. And what was an idea about 3 years ago is now a real thing. And we officially launched last spring. And as we had this idea of like building kind of the next locker room for athletes in life after sport, we didn't really know, okay, what does that actually look like? And so we studied a bunch of these different community-based businesses out there like YPO and EO and Soho House, and how do we take some of these things that have been proven valuable and effective and apply them to athletes. And that's what we did and created the post. And we're not helping athletes in transition find their first job. We're really building this premier leadership network through its exclusivity to athletes. If you look at athletes and their performance in business after sport, people who've played NCAA sport only make up 1.5% of the U.S. population, but they count for 15 of the last 21 U.S. presidents, 52% of women in the C-suite today, an outsized number of Fortune 500 CEOs. And so it's a massive outperformance for athletes when it comes to business. And so building the boundaries of the community, not only around a shared life experience and identity, but also this opportunity to build this really powerful leadership network and have a lot of great people involved, people who are at the C-suite level, CEOs of global ad agencies and founders of $50 billion private equity businesses and entrepreneurs of clothing businesses. So investors and realtors and or people in real estate and all different types of people, but, bonded by that idea of what it means to be an athlete and being a part of that community again. So it's been cool to see it come to life. Super happy about how it's come together. A lot of awesome people. And what's fun for me is, like, obviously I'm on the side of building it, but I participate as a member. I just love being around athletes again. So
when is your grand location opening, and where could everybody go to get some more information about this?
Yeah, so we're opening up. So we're a national membership, so we have members all across the country, but a big part of what we want to do is having kind of that physical space to belong to and be a part of. So we're opening up our first clubhouse in New York City, in Flatiron. That's opening, I think late September is our target date. So we're super excited about that. And we envision, a world where we can build 25 to 35 clubhouses across the country. But there's already, again, that's more the social side. We've already launched a business network. So you don't have to be in New York to be a part of what we're doing. To learn more, we have a website, www.thepost.co, which is .co, not .com. You can go there and find more information. There's an application process to join, but we're for anyone who played NCAA sport, any division, or Olympic or professional sport. And so, yeah.
All right, there you have it. So what would you say in your life or your career would be your I'm right moment? What I mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something. You asked somebody for advice. They said, Christian, that's an awful idea. Don't do that. And you said, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately, you will see why it is that I'm right.
Yeah. Look, I think it's probably founding the Post. I mean, we raised some money from investors and we received a lot of no's, and a lot of those because it was, I think it went back to that, we can see this for athletes in transition, but as someone who's 55, 65 years old, like, are they going to still see themselves as an athlete? And I knew yes, because it becomes so deeply ingrained in who you are and how you operate in this world. And that we think it carries with you for the rest of life. That was our thesis. That was my thesis. And it was my lived experience. And so I knew we had enough to start this idea. And, I think our oldest member's 60 years old. We just talked to someone the other week who's 72 years old who applied to join. So our idea of once an athlete, always an athlete has come true.
Christian, we appreciate your time. Nick and I are well-known athletes. Our softball team reaches the championship game every single year and
Let's
loses.
go.
Yeah, Christian, if you want to come play shortstop for us,
Yeah.
We've needed a shortstop for a while. Third base, we can pretty much get by and have some guys who can plug in and play really well. But shortstop, it's been a nightmare for 3 straight years. Haven't been able to find a shortstop. So if you're in the business of getting back into baseball, softball, give us a call.
Nice.
But
Right.
we really appreciate your time. We wish you the best of luck with the Post and everything moving forward.
Appreciate it.
Not too far away. And what we do here is we give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would personally like to share or promote, by all means, the floor is yours. Appreciate your time again. It was awesome.
No, thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate it. And you guys are giving me the opportunity to talk about the Post. So again, just would highly encourage anyone that was a former college athlete, come check us out.
All right. Thank you, Christian. That's going to do it here for this episode of I'm Right. For our very special guest, Christian Ponder, for my co-host, Joe Calabrese. I am Nick Durst, and this has been I'm Right.